Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Continuing with the subject, the how both a contented, fulfilled king and also a knower of Brahman pursues the same path. Acharyal provides the following additional guidance too through chapter 14. Because it will be slightly intriguing to understand how a king who is part of the material world and enjoying material wealth and benefits, how is he compared to a knower of self? That's the doubt again all of us have. So it is clarified again. Vedanta brings out this distinction, and which can apply not only to a king, it can apply to all of us. It says, if you are destined through your vasanas and your karmas to enjoy life, then you will enjoy it, because nobody can interfere with destiny. But the difference between a person who revels in that enjoyment and keeps increasing its intensity or suffers for failure to quench his desires or her desires, and a person who is part of the enjoyment and becomes indifferent, the difference is this. A king who believes in the Vedas and in the Shastras, and who practices Dharma, and who lives a life in accordance with Dharma, will slowly become contented. The material defects of the body, the defects in the mind, and in the defects in the objects of enjoyment will start revealing slowly to him or her. That's the nature. Contentment, fulfillment, and living a dharmic life leads you there. And Vedanta gives a very interesting example. Will somebody be desirous of eating the milk gruel which falls out of a dog, vomiting it out? It can't be more impactful. We won't take that. Nobody will consume that as a food. So contentment and fulfillment slowly will take one to that position. That's the power of Dharma, power of following Shastras and Vedas. But it's important that Vedanta also brings out the differences, which it does. It says there is a difference between a knower of Brahman and a king. Or when we say king, is a comparison to all other subjects who pursue material life and also Vedanta slowly. The king would have suffered all the pain at the time of acquisition or in the process of acquisition. And the fear of losing will also be there in him or her. It's quite natural, because material belongings, possessing a material belonging is not easy, and giving up is also not going to be that. To that extent, it becomes formidable or a challenge, which a knower of Brahman who pursues the path purely in the state of bliss will never suffer. So this is the difference between material people pursuing material objectives and also Vedanta, and people who pursue only Vedanta. Second difference is that because we pursue material objects and also Vedanta in the process, our minds may not be free from desires all the time. It may aspire for higher lokas. It may aspire for positions as a Gandharva. In fact, Vedanta explains what is the difference between a human Gandharva and a celestial Gandharva. By virtue of doing very good deeds in one's life, in this kalpa, one may slowly progress towards the statehood of Gandharva in which case he becomes a human Gandharva. On the other hand, one who has acquired enough punya in the previous kalpa and they are born in this kalpa as a Gandharva, then he becomes a celestial Gandharva. Same is the case of those Pithrus who will call it as the long-lived Pithrus based on their karmas, the previous kalpa. And those who are born as gods because of their virtuous deeds in the previous kalpa. And those who sweat it out in this birth, who do karma selflessly, they become what they call it the karma gods. So all this happens in different positions and attainment in different lokas. That's why Vedanta very bluntly puts it, starting from each one of us to a king and ultimately up to Brahma, the forms of desires progressively keep increasing higher and higher, maybe more purer and purer of happiness. But it doesn't matter that there is still an element of happiness or an enjoyment or a desire in each one of them. And that is why Vedanta says, one, the knower of bliss, one who seeks the path of self-realization, isolating and differentiating himself from all these pursuits, really makes it, because that bliss of self is beyond the reach of speech and beyond minds, and therefore will always remain superior. It in fact acknowledges the merit of such an aspirant and says that a knower who pursues the path of knowledge will always remain as a witnessing consciousness, because he will be able to witness the enjoyment in all the bodies around him as well as in his own body without any difference, which we the ignorant will not be able to, because we don't feel the sense of satisfaction or contentment or fulfillment when desires hit us. We want to enjoy it more and more and revel more and more, and in the process build more and more of bondage. Therefore, this is the perceptual difference between a king who is in the path. Again I say, when we say king, every material aspirant who is in the path of Vedanta, and one who is wants to be a knower of self, isolating himself from worldly affairs. Of course, both are entitled to do it, but the support we get out of Vedanta is even an aspiring person with material belongings and sense of happiness, if he starts marching into the path of Dharma and becomes contented and gets fulfillment in life, will surely reach the destination which a knower of the self does it. There is one more section to part 14, chapter 14, which we will complete it tomorrow. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The concluding part of chapter 14 deals with the last two. What has to be done has been done, and what has to be obtained has been obtained. So, somebody who was otherwise engrossed in multitude of activities or objectives, on attaining the status of a Jivan Mukta or a self-realized status, what does he or she enjoy? In fact, for them, it's all done, because whatever has been done, whatever has been to be obtained has been obtained. But Vedanta captures that state of mind for the benefit of those aspirants who wants to pursue that path. How will that status be? To be in that status, what it means. So whether if you try to dish out those aspects, it would motivate us to possibly work or proceed in this journey more sincerely, is the objective. Now, by keeping his mind completely detached and isolated, A person on becoming a realized soul will enjoy the following benefits which we as ignorant jivas keep suffering. One, there is nothing to wander thereafter. No wandering of thoughts, no question of wandering of anything else. Two, the desire or the need to perform rites, rituals, pujas, all will come to a stop. Because there is nothing to do. All this you do only to cleanse yourself. You have now become a realized soul. So all this will become not relevant anymore. The need to learn Shastras, the need to learn Vedas, the need to impart, all will again come to an end. 4. A realized soul is completely away from samsara. There is nothing called a samsara bandham or a bondage. 5. Till one gets realized, one is at the mercy and guidance of one's guru. But upon realization, what do we mean by realization in terms of a guru? A guru initiates a sishya, a deserving sishya, into the process or path of self-realization. And what does he do? He is making his sishya reach the very same status which he has already reached. So, the need for a continued guru's guidance again becomes not relevant. Guru Bhakti will continue to be there. Worshipping the Guru cannot go till the body falls down. But the need for a guidance thereafter doesn't happen at all. You need it only till you realize. Then 6, the need to concentrate. We have seen a lot about concentration, a lot about observation, a lot about contemplation. None of these states are relevant for one who has attained this state of Jivan Mukta. Then 7, a realized soul is just waiting for prarabdha to be over, nothing else. Because the body cannot be thrown away that easily. So it has to exhaust its prarabdha. So a realized soul will simply wait only for that. 8. There is no distraction for a realized soul, and therefore the question of securing a mental equipoise doesn't arise at all, because there's no need. You need to practice mental equipoise, you need to reach samadhi. All this is a state only for achieving that statehood, that Jivan Mukta status. On achieving it, it vanishes. You no longer, because there is no mind. Mind is dissolved, killed once and for all. So the question of a mental equipoise or getting distracted doesn't arise. 9. There is nothing called any special experience to say that, well, I enjoyed this, I experienced this. We say so many times. For one who has attained Jivan status, a state of Jivan Mukta, it doesn't say, because he is eternal. He is by a status of a Jivan Mukta is one who is nothing but Brahman, is in the nature of an experience. There is nothing called an object for experience, to be experienced, or a person to experience it. And undergoing a process of experience, the tripod goes. Therefore, because he is in the nature of experience, the experience is eternal bliss, eternal luminosity. And therefore, there is nothing called a great or a special experience. And finally, what is important is a self-realized soul will simply be running the rest of his life as per the dictates of destiny. And very importantly, such realized souls will, for the sake of humanity and for the sake of universe, impart good, impart guidance. They don't have to do it. There's no need for them because they are realized. But for things to continue, benefit to the world, a selfless benefit to the world is something which happens through such realized souls. So if they continue to engage, say, in worshipping God, in bathing and eating or sleeping, all this is done just to ensure prarabdha gets over. Because the body is there, you have to eat, you have to bathe, you have to keep yourself clean. And there are realized souls who after realization have performed puja, have worshipped deities, just for the sake of the, as a continuum of the remaining journey, and to demonstrate to the world that don't give up anything till you really achieve the status of a self-realized soul. And after all this, they will finally settle down in a state of bliss, which will keep them feel and say, whatever has to be done has been done, and whatever has to be obtained has indeed been obtained. With this, we come to the closure of chapter 14. We are left with only one chapter, chapter 15. Let's continue tomorrow. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Chapter 15 is the concluding chapter of Panchadasi. And the 11th Acharyal, Jagadguru Srimad Bharati Tirtha Mahaswamigal, concludes it by referring to three vital aspects: Brahman, Maya, and happiness. Happiness, when we are under the influence of Maya, what it does, and what is eternal happiness on realizing Brahman. With that, the 15 chapters comprising of what we have been dealing so far as Panchadasi comes to a close. Acharyal says, in the material world, happiness can be classified into three types: the peaceful, the turbulent, and the deluding. What is peaceful is being dispassionate, forbearance, and being generous are all considered to be peaceful activities. Thirst, longing, affection, desire, greed fall under the category of turbulence, and mistake, fear will be considered as deluding activities. In turbulent times and in deluding times, we see only the reflection of existence and consciousness, and not bliss. But bliss occurs even in our routine, regular life. We see fractions of that and experience fractions of that only when we are in peaceful times. I shall demonstrate this with an illustration. Reflection of a moon in a dirty water and reflection of it in a clean, pure water. Dirty water is compared to turbulence and deluding times. You will see only its existence, and bliss is completely hidden. And because you are still able to see some light, we think there is consciousness also there. In the case of, say, pure water, we see the aspect of consciousness appearing. But that's not sufficient. What is required, according to Acharyal, is this illustration. Take the case of a piece of wood. See, between clear water and wood, in clean water, you will see consciousness but not bliss, because you will only find heat passing through it and not light. So, take the case of a wood which burns. It generates heat and also throws light. Therefore, the human approach, the human mind should be of that category. In such cases, you will see the dawn of existence, consciousness, and also bliss. Experience of bliss is not seen in the turbulent nor in the deluding activities. Even in peaceful times, we see more of only increased happiness. The different gunas are also explained briefly with illustrations in this chapter. When there is a desire for, say, houses, lands, and objects, the desire is born of Rajoguna, which is a turbulent activity, and therefore ultimately there will be no happiness. When it comes to delusion, it will land up more and more into grief, and of varying degrees also. Grief arises when object which we desire is not got. If it is not got, the grief becomes intensified. If there is an obstruction, it results in anger. And if it is harmful, still we want it, and it's not got, it results in hatred. If there is no remedy available, then it results in dejection. All a fallout of tamoguna. When the object is got, then there is a sensation of delight in us, a momentary peace arises, and there is great happiness. Now, this is again a frame of mind where we are able to enjoy happiness far more. But if one has to remain eternally happy, Vedanta says it's neither good to be in turbulent nor good to be in a delusion. The peace which we seek, which we get in fractions, should actually convert our mind into a dispassionate mind. Dispassion gives the greatest happiness because it is free from any negative frills. Like, for example, forbearance allows you to be free from anger, and being more and more generous allows you to be free from greed. These are all qualities which will eliminate the negatives in us. Now, Acharyal proceeds to define how things look at in the material world. For example, in mud and stone, one can only see existence. So there are inert substances where you can only see existence. In a turbulent and a deluding mind, we can see existence and consciousness. In a peaceful time, we see existence, consciousness, and bliss. Coming to Maya, Acharyal says Maya broadly has three properties. Non-existence, because it is deception or illusion. Inertness and misery. Whenever we think of Maya, if we think of these three things and start analyzing, then we will slowly get relieved out of Maya, says Acharyal. What is the example for non-existence? Assuming somebody is saying that a man has horns. It is a fact which can never happen. So world or this universe can never be true. So if you want to believe world to be untrue, believe it's like a man having horns. Inertness in the wood or stone and misery during turbulent and deluding times. Think always it is a property or attribute of Maya. And therefore, how does one see in daily life? We should start from ordinary life. How do you examine the various things which we come across in this universe? How do we deal with them? He gives us a very easy way out. Says, whenever you see stones, think that it is only of the existence aspect and forget the name and form. Think it represents existence. Whenever we are in turbulent times, We should think, okay, we are turbulent and we are getting deluded. So the existence and conscious aspect is dominating. Therefore, forget the misery it gives. And whenever we are in peaceful times, that momentary peace, the fraction of happiness which we get, always think that we are in the state of existence, consciousness, and bliss for a moment, and may it continue. This is one form. And these three forms are graded as the lowest, the middle, and the good. Now, there is a fourth form to it also. In a state of complete quietude, being peaceful is different from quietude. Quietude is a state of, say, samadhi. There is complete dismemberment of the mental activity. And because of that, we are able to see flavor of bliss. And this is considered to be the fourth category. When the mind attains single pointedness through contemplation, then knowledge becomes steady. In knowledge, existence, consciousness, and bliss, attaining the nature of an indivisible single essence, shine without any differentiation, as the factors causing differentiation have been eliminated. When the Brahman reality, free from differentiating factors, secondless and self-luminous, shines, there is no threefoldedness as knower, knowledge, and the know. It is therefore called the bliss of plenitude or the bliss of Brahman. With this, we come to the conclusion of 15 chapters. We may have one or two more lectures on Panchadasi with reference to a few more things. And with that, we will wind up this series. Pranams and Namaskar.